Welcome to the Archaeology Studio. Today's episode considers ancient writing systems. By the end of this episode, you will be prepared to describe the forms and variations of ancient writing systems, and you can discuss the implications for learning more about the ancient world. This presentation offers a general view of ancient writing systems as a starting point for linking archaeology with ancient history studies. You can think of writing as a physical form of communication using visible symbols. Systems of symbols act in total to represent the concepts, components, and expressions of a language. In the case of writing, symbols are fixed onto a surface of fabric, stone, or other material. One form of writing is known as logographic, wherein the symbols represent whole words or concepts. Many of the world's ancient writing systems began with roots in logographic systems, for instance as seen in Mayan glyphs, Egyptian hieroglyphs, and Chinese characters. Another form of writing can be described as syllabary, wherein each symbol represents a voiced syllable of a language. Examples include the Cherokee syllabary, as well as the Japanese systems of hiragana and katakana. Alphabetic writing involves individual symbols for each voiced phoneme of a language, as exemplified in Greek and Roman scripts. In some cases, writing systems combined elements of logographic, syllabary, and alphabetic components. Additionally, all writing systems have changed through time, and many have influenced one another. Formal writing is one way for people to communicate and express themselves. Other expressions, of course, convey some aspects of communication, as can be seen in rock art and pottery decorations. But these examples do not necessarily convey complete languages. In a formal writing system, anything of a language can be written, and everyone in the literate population can comprehend what is written. The oldest known writing has been identified as cuneiform, made in ancient Sumer of Mesopotamia as early as 3500 BC. The word cuneiform literally means wedge-shaped. A wedge-shaped tool was impressed into a lump of wet clay, and then the clay would dry into a firm tablet. Cuneiform is understood as a logophonetic system, combining logographic elements with syllabary and alphabetic components. A slightly older expression of proto-cuneiform can be seen in a few instances, such as the etching into a limestone tablet at Kish. Cuneiform became the standardized writing system of Mesopotamia from 3500 BC all the way through AD 200. Throughout that long time range, cuneiform adapted and evolved for accommodating several different language groups and contexts. Cuneiform was used for record keeping, correspondence, literature, and other purposes. So far, archaeological excavations have recovered at least 500,000 cuneiform tablets, and some estimates have suggested more than 2 million tablets now in curated collections around the world. Among the more informative discoveries are the libraries of cuneiform tablets, such as the Library of King Ashurbanipal of Assyria. These findings refer to specific people, places, and events during narrow windows of time. For instance, Ashurbanipal ruled in Assyria from 669 through 631 BC, and the library's thousands of tablets reveal daily records of correspondence. fragments of literature, and notes about magic, medicine, and much more. Even older than Ashurbanipal's library, the temple ruins at Nimrud have preserved cuneiform scripts, along with larger illustrated scenes, religious iconography, and full context of ancient life, all within a narrow framing of 865 through 860 BC. In the ancient world, cuneiform overlapped with other writing systems, including Egyptian hieroglyphs. Eventually, Egyptian hieroglyphics would influence a much broader region than cuneiform, interfacing with Greek and Roman empires all the way through the first few centuries AD. In Egypt, the oldest known hieroglyphic writing has been dated close to 3200 BC, slightly younger than the oldest known cuneiform. The oldest forms of hieroglyphics definitely were logographic, using picture-based symbols for representing whole words or concepts. Some of those elements possibly could be traced back to even older symbols in rock art and pottery decorations. Later versions of hieroglyphics would accommodate syllabary and alphabetic aspects, compatible with the changing language communities within and around Egypt. Egyptian hieroglyphics were drawn onto papyrus, carved or etched into sandstone, and painted onto walls, sculptures, and other surfaces. Hieroglyphics often accompanied larger artworks and monuments, and those instances have revealed considerable insights into ancient Egyptian philosophy, ideology, and life in general. Among the oldest known alphabetic writing was Sanskrit, documented at least as early as 1500 BC in parts of India. Sanskrit primarily is alphabetic, although it involves some syllabary elements. In any case, it was significantly different from the more logographic symbology in other writing systems, such as in cuneiform and hieroglyphics. Sanskrit has been linked with the Indo-European family of languages, with numerous variations over a broad expanse of the globe. Sanskrit diverged with multiple outcomes. Perhaps the oldest version was Vedic Sanskrit, used primarily in religious scripts of India since 1500 BC. Closely thereafter, the influence of Sanskrit can be seen in Mycenaean Greek by 1450 BC, and then in Ancient Greek by 750 BC. These alphabetic systems forever changed world history and our ability today to learn about the ancient world. In terms of learning about the ancient world in general, translations between writing systems have been invaluable. Perhaps the most famous example of such a translation has been the Rosetta Stone, in fact involving 3 writing systems. Carved into the Rosetta Stone, the top portion shows Egyptian hieroglyphics. The middle section shows Demotic script, and the lower section shows Greek writing. The writing on the Rosetta Stone commemorated a decree on behalf of King Ptolemy V, dated 196 BC. The stone originally was in Memphis, probably in a temple. Much later, in 1799, it was rediscovered among the building material for the construction of a fort near the town of Rashid, also known as Rosetta. At that time, Egyptian hieroglyphics had not been used for several centuries, and many aspects of hieroglyphics had become questionable, debatable, or mysterious. With its 3 cross-translating scripts, the Rosetta Stone has opened endless possibilities for comprehending ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics and the larger context that they originally represented. In another part of the ancient world, Chinese writing developed at least as early as 1500 BC. For example, as preserved in the oracle bones of the Bronze Age Shang dynasty. Oracle bones were engraved with the logographic symbols of Chinese characters, and then the heat of a fire would create cracks in the bones that could be interpreted in various ways. Isolated symbols have been found as engravings in pottery and jade objects, dated possibly as old as 4800 BC, but these cases so far have not shown the complete features of writing systems. Overall, Chinese writing has been perhaps the world's most successful logographic system. Chinese writing naturally has undergone numerous transformations since 1500 BC. It continues in use today, not only in China, but also in variations across a much broader geographic region. Independently of the ancient writing systems in Asia and in Europe, Mayan glyphs developed in Central America, dated as early as 300 through 200 BC. Mayan glyphs were carved into stone and painted onto walls and other surfaces, with many variations. The traditions continued for several centuries, all the way through Spanish imperial contexts of the 1500s and 1600s. Mayan glyphs are regarded as a logosyllabic system, combining logographic symbols with some syllabary representations. As seen in other ancient writing systems, Mayan glyphs have survived in parts of larger artworks, temples, and monuments. Their preserved forms therefore allow insights into broader contexts of how they were used and what they implied about the ancient Mayan world. While most archaeological artifacts, food middens, and house ruins collectively portray general views of the past, written records can reveal detailed facts about specific people, places, and events. Additionally, they can reflect intangible qualities about abstract thoughts, concepts, and beliefs. In these cases, writing systems allow archaeology to connect with ancient history studies. Cuneiform has been especially productive for linking archaeology with ancient history. For example, when chronicling the lives of individual historical figures. During the time of the Assyrian kingdom, cuneiform has been preserved from the childhood school training of Ashurbanipal. Abundant records then were produced throughout Ashurbanipal's reign, and one poignant object relates to his later years as a fatigued and aged king in 638 BC. Dated about 200 years prior to Ashurbanipal, Assyria was ruled by King Ashurnasirpal, with an extraordinarily detailed record at the Palace of Nimrud, dated concisely at 865 through 860 BC. At the Palace of Nimrud, cuneiform inscriptions accompanied larger representations of religious sites and philosophies, historical events, and other aspects of ancient life of the Assyrian kingdom at 865 through 860 BC. In this case, the individualistic and personal details are extensive for just a 5-year period. In concluding this episode, now you should be familiar with ancient writing systems in terms of how to describe them, and how to discuss the implications for studying ancient sites and larger contexts. I hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you will explore more with the Archaeology Studio.